Module 5.2. As a reminder, it's recommended to print the video script and annotate the script while watching the video for later use. Video scripts are available on Canvas. How can we visually summarize categorical data? In the previous note set, we looked at ways to summarize categorical variables. Here we will consider other ways to numerically describe categorical variables as well as visualize categorical variables. A proportion is the most common way to summarize a categorical variable. Three common numerical summaries that involve frequencies and proportions are rate, risk, and odds. An incident rate is a measure of the frequency with which an event occurs in a defined population over a specified period of time. Rates are often reported as the number of occurrences out of 100,000. For example, 300 newly diagnosed cases of depression per 100,000 men per year. A prevalence rate is a proportion that describes a population at a specific point in time. Prevalence rates are useful when performing a cross-sectional study. Risk is a proportion that describes the proportion of subjects that develop an outcome of interest, assuming that the data collection began when the subjects were disease-free. Risks are reserved for prospective studies. Odds give us a way to compare the proportion with a certain outcome to the proportion without the outcome. The odds are the ratio of a proportion with an outcome to the proportion without the outcome. So for example, odds are equal to proportion in a category divided by 1 minus the proportion in a category. Note, both prevalence rates and risk are proportions and are calculated the same way. The difference in this is in the interpretations, which depends on how the data is collected. This table summarizes different study designs we saw previously in the appropriate numerical summaries. Pause the video and take a moment to look over the table. What are some other ways to visually describe categorical variables? Bar graphs, also known as a bar chart. Bar graphs plot the frequencies or proportions of categorical variables. Recall, categorical variables can take numeric values or non-numeric values, where the values represent names or labels. Examples include color, gender, and zip code. The y-axis usually denotes the frequency or percent, and the x-axis denotes the values the variable takes. The bars on the graph do not touch one another. Example: we can summarize the categorical variable breed from the dog example using a bar chart. Notice here we have a horizontal bar chart, so in this case breed is on the y-axis and count is along the bottom. There are many ways to create bar graphs. Most statistical software, including Excel, SAS, and R, will create bar charts. Bar charts can be vertical or horizontal and should have the following properties. The x-axis should be labeled with the variable name, if creating a horizontal bar graph, and the y-axis will have the variable name. The y-axis should be labeled with frequency or percentage. If creating a horizontal bar graph, the x-axis should be labeled with frequency or percentage. If the data being displayed is sample data, percentages are usually the best choice. The bars should not touch and the distance between each bar should be the same. Each bar should have the same width. Each of the bars should be the same color, unless the colors of the bars provide some extra information. And the graph should have a meaningful title. Pie charts, also known as a pie graph. A pie chart is a circular graph which denotes the percentage of times a case takes a certain value out of all possible values of a variable. The circle represents a whole. If you are missing data and still want to create a pie chart, you may need to use some generic categories such as other or missing. Example: we could also summarize the dog breed variable with a pie chart. There are many ways to create pie charts. Most statistical software will create pie charts, including Excel, SAS, and R. Pie charts should have the following properties. Often the different sectors of a pie chart are arranged clockwise in order of magnitude. Should only be used for a small number of categories. Each slice should be clearly labeled with the category and corresponding percentages. And the graph should have a meaningful title. It is important to not only know how to create graphs, but to be able to gain information from the plots. Summarizing the information in a meaningful way is the whole reason for creating the graphs. Looking at both the bar graph and the pie graphs of the variable dog breed, notice that very quickly we can see that Pit Bull is the most common breed and Dalmatian is the least. This concludes the Module 5.2 notes.